Want the reward? Do the damn work. Challenge yourself. Inspire change. Choice, not luck. Hey everybody, Todd Crandall, the founder of Racing for Recovery, back with another podcast in our new studio, if you will. And we have Shane in here today. How you doing, brother?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
Tell me how Ricky Bobby has influenced your life.
Well, in times of need, I call on Ricky Bobby, you know.
Right.
Has taught us some important life lessons.
If you're not first, you're last.
Absolutely.
Right. All kidding aside, dude, this is going to be good. I'm glad you're doing this. Why did you agree to do it this time versus when we've talked about it before, you were a little, why now?
Because I probably would have just kept pushing it off. So I think springing it on me the day before worked out well.
Good. Were you hesitant to do it because you didn't think what? Like you were ready for it? You didn't have anything to say? Why were you hesitant about it?
Yeah, I think I still struggle with thinking what I have to say is important or holds some sort of power.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying what you are going to say today is of value. It's powerful. And when I'm looking at you now, trying to control my emotions a little bit, I go back to that first day I thought of you or saw you. So you think of that.
Yeah.
And everything you've done and learned since then, that's power. I'll use a little bit of humor to help break the tension a little bit for you. I know you read our first book when you were a kid in school suspension. Is that what they still called it?
Yeah. My school was too small, so they didn't have it. So it was out of school.
Right.
Which it was held at the Juvenile Detention Center, which made it a little bit more.
Okay.
More so.
How did you end up in there? And what were your thoughts when you were in there reading that book?
So ended up in there by some very poor choices made on school grounds to use drugs. And there were, of course, consequences with that. And in-school suspension were those consequences to those choices that I made. In reading that book, I think it's like a lot of attempts that we make in getting sober before we really, stick to it and make it a lifestyle. It was, I realized these choices were bad. Maybe I should do something about it, but just kind of dipping our toe in the water. And yeah, I think it was an attempt to learn more about the poor choice that I made, but not really knowing what to do with it.
Did you know what was wrong at that time?
That I got caught.
That's good. Yeah.
At that point it was, how can I not get caught again? I think was the mindset.
Were you aware of anything else that was going on with you, like emotionally at that point? Or was it like you just said, like, dang, I got caught with this. This sucks being in school suspension. How do I not do this again? Or were you even aware of the feelings and the emotions behind what led you in there? Was that starting to be on your radar at that time?
No, I couldn't correlate the two, the emotions and the substance use didn't correlate at the time. I knew I had, I guess, difficulties with my emotions. But yeah, as far as correlating the two, I didn't know why I was doing that. I just thought I was having fun, And there in the beginning, it is fun, new, exciting.
Did you think you were of value then?
No.
How do you think you're of value now today?
I think in my experience, alone, I bring value to help others, to show people a different way, you know. I think I bring value to my family, friends, people that we serve here. So there's a lot of ways.
So why don't we do this as we progress into this? I'll have you talk about this first because it'll lead me to other questions. How did you end up at Racing for Recovery?
Some bad choices, right? As we all do, and ending up in treatment. I look back at that day that I used for the last time. My mother called me with some news about legal issues, consequences that I was facing, and asked me if I wanted to get help. I accepted that help, and she had heard about Racing for Recovery. We stopped here and was told that I had to do a medical detox because we don't have medical on site. So I went to Arrowhead Treatment Center for detox and then came back here.
So that Thursday night at that support group meeting, that was your first time coming in here. Is that right? It was that day?
That was my first week in treatment.
After detox?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's where and I said this earlier, that's my first image of you. I remember where you sat, which one of our signs was behind you. And I distinctly remember your mom, her outpouring of support. And I remember saying to you, did you hear that? And I always go back to Shane, and I'm doing it even now, like knowing the condition you were in, your mom was in, your family was in there. And then having you doing this right now is 100% an example of what Racing for Recovery does. So I could ask you a ton of questions in that. I want you to describe to people what that process was like. Even when I said that to you that night in that meeting, when your mom was speaking so passionately and motherly about you, did that resonate with you at that time?
Absolutely, it did. I think in having family involved, for me personally, I don't think it could have been done without, because that is something that I wanted back in my life. I lacked for a long time a real relationship with my parents and brothers, nieces, nephews, uncles, aunts, cousins. I lacked that. I was longing for that.
Good word.
Yeah. And I think I had open ears in the beginning. A lot of it, it's a tough pill to swallow to be told how you made other people feel. It doesn't feel nice, but I was willing to listen, and I think that is key. Me and my mother have made lots of strides in our relationship. Building that trust back with them has been a process. I like other people, wanted it back quickly, and came to the realization through being here, and having some people, set up kind of that path of what rebuilding a family relationship looks like, which is different for everybody. But I had an idea of the patience that it takes from the person that has caused the damage. It's it was a process.
So it sounds like you were cognizant of how you felt when you were here, probably physically too, in addition to mentally and a lack of spiritual, whatever that is. You were starting to get a taste of, and I'll say what our choices were doing to the innocent bystander. You mentioned that you were willing to listen to that. What did you learn by listening to your mom, or anybody, the cousins, brothers, whoever in there? What did you learn through that has really helped you to be the awesome soul you are today?
I think it goes back to one of the first initial questions of the value, recognizing I do have a value. People do care, and kind of waking up and just recognizing the hurt that I've caused,
So let's talk about you being in, I don't like saying my IOP group, but the IOP group that I was running. I remember where you sat, back right corner to me. Mm-hmm. How long did it take for us to allow you to feel safe, heard, and that this could do something for you? Like, what was that like? Was it a certain group? Was it a certain person, one of your peers that said something, or what was it about us that you were like, okay, I'm gonna get into this here because I can see that they're earning my trust?
Mm-hmm. Walking through the door that first day, there's a gentleman in the waiting room that offered to buy us lunch, me and another gentleman that were here for an intake. And I think seeing that initial act of kindness from a stranger was extremely helpful. Seeing you, I think you came out and greeted me on the first day that I was here, which was different for me. Having seen you in, other capacities or whatnot, that was very welcoming. I think just seeing that we matter as clients here is evident throughout,
I with respect to, I felt when we were starting to gain your trust, I don't remember the topic, but it was the day that I was drawing the little guy up in the top right-hand corner on the board. And I forgot what you were saying. Again, Shane, I forgot what we were talking about, but I remember it was whatever we were talking about, you were engaged that day. I think that's where you talked about, that might have been when you first told me you read our first book in school suspension. And we were, again, I can't remember what it was, but I'm like, there it is. Something just shifted in there. And it seemed like ever since that day, you were in it, and I could see it. And now you're on our side of it. When those moments happen, right? That's when the magic is. Same thing happened with Tina. I remember the day it happened for her, and that was the day that I was like, okay, this kid's into it, I want to know more of like what that journey was like for you being here. Like when did it start kicking in for you? You mentioned right away on the first day, and you gave some examples of that. When did it shift to where you were like fully, okay, I'm I'm doing this. I see the light. I know what they're trying to do here. I know I need that. And then you started actually doing it. What was that like?
So that day that you speak of in IOP was going back to before the substance use even started.
Yeah.
Because in so many places where they try to get people off drugs and alcohol, they don't go back that far for whatever the reason, you know. It was eye-opening to realize that I don't use drugs because I like them. I don't use drugs because they feel good. I used drugs because I was feeling something I didn't like. I was lacking something that I wanted. And that was the true reason that I used drugs and alcohol. So going back to that and realizing what that 16-year-old child needed, I think I could begin rebuilding.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hurt you. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will go back to our first book. Now, when you're having this breakthrough in IOP that day or any other time, then did that book start to be more, was it a different book to you at that point where you're like, oh, okay, now I remember reading this and now relating to what was in that book?
Yeah. Because I think that goes through the journey of Racing for Recovery.
Yep.
Highlights some some may say extreme moments of like redemption in your life, and doing some pretty awesome things, and seeing that there might be that opportunity for myself. I could start to envision that a little bit more. But yeah, that and reading, There's More Than One Way to Cleveland, and doing our workbook on that was very, very beneficial.
So let's start moving it forward where you're into it here, you're doing well, you get 6, 7, 8 months under your belt, where's your mindset with that? Like how did the physical aspect of what we're doing? I know you were doing that. You eventually started working at Planet Fitness. Talk about the next level of change for you where you're like, okay, I'm getting the emotional stuff out of it. I'm doing the physical stuff. I'm gaining my family back. What's that now doing for you, moving your life forward?
Again, building value to myself through exercise, positive relationships, employment. So kind of just benefiting the community and adding to the community is where I think gaining traction really began. And kind of envisioning where I wanted to be, what I wanted to be doing. I made the decision to work on getting the CDCA and thought about working here because I wanted to show people how to do this and utilize what we have to do it in their own way, like I had.
How was, and I've done this too, maybe not the exact detail, but how was it when you were working at Planet Fitness, which is right down the street from us, and also recognizing from your past, you used to sleep in your hoopty out front there at the same location that you're now working at. How I'm sure there were moments where you're like, oh, I can't believe but quickly getting into, yeah, but I'm not doing that anymore. I'm actually working here. How did that reality of both the bad and now what was good, how was that motivating you moving forward to eventually get you in here as a staff member?
I think in sometimes still lacking in self-esteem and something that I have to continually build on. There's days, where I'm like, well, how can I be showing people how to stay sober and better their life? But I kind of go back to the Planet Fitness situation there. It really helped show me that you can change. There can be, for me, it was, I think, honestly, redemption too, in my own story and journey, and built strength within me, to kind of go back there and face that. And there were times where, not in that capacity, but yeah, coming in here, there's, especially in the beginning, self-doubt and stuff still lingering,
So you join us, Shane, and you're talking about the self-doubt. We hired you for a reason because you are of value. I guess that value thing is the theme of what we're doing here today. How did you overcome the self-doubt to be a success here as a case manager? And I know have some now, I don't like using the word managerial stuff, but you're moving up a little bit and taking on some other responsibilities. And you've been here, is it over 2 years, right?
Going on 3. Yep.
Where the hell have I been? So going on 3, how has that been working here where you're finding that value in self and now seeing it being transferred back to those that are in your care, just like when you were in our care? What's that been like? I want to know the feelings, what you had to overcome, all that.
I think in adding to myself and recognizing, well, I'll go back to being able to build myself up, right? And continually recognizing that, I guess, that I've done something,
This part's hard for you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And I want to make a note to people that are watching this. This is the problem for people like us. The struggle of just basically saying that we're not bad and doing some good. Why is that so difficult for people like us? And that's why we're doing what we're doing. There's just no self-value and self-worth in there. And it's hard even, like I look at you and I know we're similar. We're all similar in here with that. But when you're on the other side of that and you look at somebody, you're like, dude, I know a million good things about you. What's so hard about saying that stuff? It's like, well, I couldn't do that either. But I'm pointing this out because that's, again, we do. We focus on that for people because that's the original problem and why we're choosing drugs to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And you've been sober for a while and it's still evident in how hard that is.
Yeah, I think talking about myself, it can be very difficult at times. And there's a balance between, for me, remaining humble and confidence and trying to continue to do that. That balance is difficult.
You're You're doing a good job. I don't know if you were going to bring up like trying to not be arrogant, and dude, there's no arrogance about you at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that can be tough.
Yeah. At all.
But I guess one of the things that helped me in working with people is just trying to be a positive role model, you know? That's all I can do is just show people. Sometimes our way of doing things is not telling people, but showing them, explaining to them how you did things, the experiences that you've been through that you've possibly seen other people go through, and what works and what doesn't.
Dude, I was going to get to this later when we start talking about your Ironman stuff, but I have to bring it up now because it's relative. I interviewed Mike Riley, the voice of Ironman, yesterday, and he asked me, he said, are you a person that wants to tell people or show people? I'm like, I show people. I don't have to say anything anymore. And we were both commenting on there's a difference between telling and not really doing, and just being in your doing and letting that be the example for others to see and then do for themselves. So having said that, and I know you'll comply with HIPAA, can you give us an example of a situation where you're working with somebody where you just being and doing, they noticed that and started doing it for themselves?
I think in positive alternatives, showing people what a healthy routine, healthy exercise can look like. And I hope that goes further into seeing maybe my mother in our support group still, and seeing what bringing in your family can do for you as well. I don't have a specific example, but yeah, I think just because people comment on that all the time, you know, the Ironman stuff. And I think if they just can show up to the gym once, you know, because of what I'm doing, it's a win.
One more question, then I do want to get into Ironman stuff. How have you handled the difficulties of, I'm not going to say the job because we don't really work here. How do you handle the drama, the loss, the hardships, the struggles of others that we see? That's just the reality of this. How have you learned to handle that effectively, and how has it helped you to be a better human being and a better clinician here?
Self-care first and foremost. Healthy boundaries with clients. With that self-care, having things set up that I have to do before I can help other people.
What advice would you say to somebody who wants to come into this field? Give us something that's positive, and give us something that they need to learn quickly to help them.
Coming into this field, I would say do it because you love it and you want to see people do better. It's a selfless thing. You can, achieve other things, I think, in serving other people. But first and foremost, it's for them. What was the other question?
What's one thing that they need to learn that they might not know coming into this? Or what they think this is that you're like, you probably need to know this?
Take care of yourself first.
Yep.
and sometimes it's going to hurt, seeing people in and out of here constantly, seeing people that might not have the chance to make it back. It can be difficult, and don't bring it home with you.
You're very good at that. Excuse me. You're very good. Actually, we had to switch seats for some of this because you have found a way to be able to separate that quickly and effectively. I can say that took me a long time to figure that one out. I remember being in my master's program and them talking about things like this, not to the depth that we are, but I really didn't know what they were talking about until I was almost like in the quicksand and was like, holy cow, I got to get out of here. And you've done a remarkable job of learning that very quickly to be healthier sooner than what I was in that. So
yeah, I think
yeah, that's been good to see you do that, because this can burn you out very quickly if you don't apply that self-care that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think I learned a lesson pretty quickly in trying to be a case manager in people who I care about's lives instead of being a partner, a father, a son, or, and getting those relationships and lines. It's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's interesting because now I do want to segue into IRONMAN. This is where I don't think we ever. Well, no, I want you to talk about this. How did you get into IRONMAN? Talk about when you first started thinking about it, and just getting into it initially, because that'll bring me back what I was just going to ask you.
So I was doing physical exercise that I thought was beneficial for me since coming here, which was weightlifting. Doing that consistently 5 to 6 days a week. Experienced some great benefits from it. However, it did lead into worrying too much about what other people thought, and worrying about body image instead of what it was doing for me mentally. So I realized the need to put that down for a minute, and in doing so, I found running. Started doing that pretty consistently, and then went back to something that I started doing here as a client, which was swimming. So I got a membership to the Y and was swimming. And I think at that point you had asked me about doing an Ironman. And I think I considered it for maybe a week or so. And I came back to you and was like, yeah, let's do it. So
I didn't peer pressure you into that, right?
No,
right?
No. It's just a friendly suggestion. Yeah.
Hey, if
as
you
we
want to
do
work
sometimes,
here,
right?
Right. I want to ask you about the weightlifting stuff. You gained some benefits of that, and no steroids, people. I want everybody to know that right off the bat. But you gained a lot of physical growth from your efforts with weightlifting.
Yeah.
It sounds like there was a little bit of a confliction internally with that. Were you finding, hey, I'm doing this so other people will see it? Or was it one of those things where you were getting the compliments and it was hard to receive those compliments? What was going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, I came into treatment at 145 pounds. And in weightlifting, I put on weight, started to see benefits from it, and maybe receive compliments, right? And found that I was I guess, seeking validation instead of just self-accomplishment in that, you know.
And switching into Ironman, then, how did that help overcome what weightlifting was causing?
There's nobody watching you at 5 o'clock in the morning going out for a run, you know. It's purely self-love at that point for me personally, to be able to do that. And I think it was something new that I could work on overcoming, the physical part of it, right?
You've seen our documentary, and I just watched it recently for some kids that I was at a treatment center with. And I love the part where they're interviewing us after a swim workout at the Y. And you're talking about a variety of things, but one of them was, you know, basically what you were just saying, doing it for yourself, being accountable to yourself. And I get this big grin on my face in the shot, and I'm like, that's a look of pride, watching you do it right. And I still have a lot of pride watching you do it right. So talk about Ironman, what it's done for you, some of the highs, the lows, including your accident that we had, or you had in Muncie. What's it been like doing these things, and what do you plan on doing with them?
First and foremost, I get to go to some pretty cool places, you know. That's a benefit in and of its own. Seeing some pretty cool places recently, Wilmington, North Carolina. But I guess doing just aside from the normal day to day and what it does for my mental health, the bigger picture of it in training for something like that, I guess going back to my first one, which was, I think, about a 8-month-long process, leading up to that. And then
Muscle Man in
Muscle
New York.
Man,
Yep.
New York.
Yep.
Yep. Right on the Purple People Eater.
Yeah.
That was...
Wait a minute. You did it on the Purple... You did?
Yeah. Yeah. There were some hills there, too.
For people that are listening, the Purple People Eater is I guess you could call it the Racing for Recovery entry-level bike.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Why did you start on that and not one of the other bikes that you have now? Why did you start on that?
It was available.
Okay, well, that's being grateful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's on me. Then I'm like, why did I do that? But okay.
Yeah. I think it was better than the Huffy that I had, right?
Well, again, that's gratitude,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
I forgot that you did it on that thing. All right, well, good on you. Okay.
Yeah. I remember you had got done with your race, right? And we're there on the loop.
Yeah.
I think the last 3 miles was the last time I seen you. And then I got to finish that last 3 miles and finish at the finish line. And I lost it there emotionally. I had to sit down and had a very, very good emotional moment with that, and overcoming a lot of challenges that had to do with training. Just getting there to be able to do one of those things is monumental, especially with the backgrounds that we come from. So yeah, I go back to that moment a lot. And there's a lot of gratitude in that moment.
Were you proud of yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was one of the, it's hard to, during that journey, stop. For me, it's hard to stop and take a moment to appreciate the hard work that goes into it, the dedication, the peer support that we talked about before, of other people that go into that. It's just kind of go, and then accomplishing that at the end and being able to take that moment for myself was huge. And I find that in having done more, it gets kind of more difficult to do, I mean, it's never going to be the same as that first one, but finding those moments to keep you going is important,
You've completed 6 now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're already finding out, like, each race you have to find some form of motivation,
Mm-hmm.
and then apply that motivation, or you don't get the prize again. And it just because you did 5 doesn't mean they're automatically going to hand you the 6th. And that's one of the things that I love about it. And it's also applicable to sobriety. Just because you have a year doesn't mean we're going to hand you another one.
No.
You got to earn it.
Yeah.
So talk about how Ironman, A, how it's not an addiction for you, because we hear that a lot, and B, how it's definitely applicable to sustaining sobriety and improving your life.
I mean, I have the ability to stop whenever I want to,
Kind of like drugs.
Yeah.
Right?
I didn't think that for a long
Right.
time. I didn't think I had the ability to stop. So, I mean, it's positive, it's beneficial. We can easily take things to the extreme. I can, at least, in doing stuff, but I'm able to find a balance with that today. So yeah, I don't believe that, it's an addiction.
No.
So in adding to my sobriety, I think that, I guess, just echoes everything that I've already been doing, kind of on a grander scheme of things, with a healthy routine, diet, utilizing peer support. And I think one of the cool things is to find those moments where, I know we had talked about the wearing, like, Racing for Recovery. I won't call it a kit. We'll call it garb.
Yeah, right. The garb.
Racing for Recovery garb on the in those events. Having other people come up to you that are in recovery themselves is huge, and those are some of the moments during those races that propel you the next mile.
Yeah.
So
you graduate from the Purple People Eater to a better machine, if you will, for Ironman Ohio, which technically was supposed to be your first. And I'm going to go back to the peer pressure thing, because I'm thinking a lot of things that, I've said, including, well, hey, Shane, why don't you do this one first? Which kind of threw you off the plan a little bit. And then I even think of, encouraging you to come up front to start when I'm getting in there. And sometimes I'm like, well, he doesn't know any better. Let's just toss him in there and see what happens. And I'm kind of laughing about some of this, because you have figured out the reasons why I was kindly suggesting that. But how was it then to move up and have a better piece of equipment to do it on, and starting to find your groove into that? How has that helped you, physically, mentally, emotionally, starting to find your way and doing these extraordinary events?
first of all, moving up in the line it helps get I was worried about, but I still felt like I was going to drown in New York, right? I chose to stay back, which you got in there about a half hour before me, and got done, way before me. And I was like, I don't really like that feeling. So, but the feeling was the same in getting in there. So
Yeah.
I think in overcoming that was just get in there and get it done.
It's not, that feeling doesn't go away.
Yeah, no,
Right? Yeah.
no. So yeah, I think in getting a little bit better equipment, right? It does help with the self-esteem a little bit, honestly. Just knowing that, hey, I got the same thing as everyone else. I have the same opportunity as everyone else.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to the anxiety of the swim start, right? And you now know why I was saying what I was saying. It's because it's like it's not going away, dude. They're not going to change it because you wait a half hour. How is that applicable to the hardships and sobriety? You got to go to court or say you're sorry to somebody or whatever it is. It's the same mentality. This stuff is not going away. So you might as well do it now as opposed to putting it off and having that constant worry going on. Again, the parallels of both Ironman and sobriety, how are they correlated to things that you may not want to do, but you need to do and have done?
Yeah. So there are going to be things that you want, which may be, resolving legal issues, getting your family back in your life, and say the Ironman, you want to finish that Ironman and get it done. There's going to be things that you don't want to do. You might not want to face up and be honest with people about how you feel, and say rebuilding a relationship, right? But you're going to have to do that to get through it, to get to the other side.
Right on.
So yeah, there's going to be things that you don't want to do, but in facing them and overcoming them, those things get easier. I won't say it's easy, but it feels easier getting in the water now.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
It's easier to be honest with my family about my feelings and doing those things. So
It's you mentioned our Cleveland book. It's big idea number 3. We're not immune to life's hardships or Ironman hardships, right? So speaking of hardships, let's talk about the crash at Muncie and how I would gather that was not on your race plan. Probably had, no, hey, I want to do this today, but what was that crash like? And tell people like how you overcame that adversity, including the hospital trip, and I don't want to share the story. What was the crash in Muncie like for you?
It was a little surreal. I don't think anybody ever goes into doing one of these events and signing up for them like, what if I crash? What if, it's just not on the radar? It surely wasn't on mine. So in doing so, I've injured myself before in getting through that, but on that scale, it was a little different. I think seeing you was a little reassuring. Definitely, you passed me while I was, kind of trying to gather myself there, and so yeah, I guess working forward from that, it hurt a little bit.
Emotionally? I mean,
Emotionally.
obviously physically, yeah.
Yeah. And putting the work in and not getting the result that you want sucks. But I was really proud of myself in how I handled that situation, and and coming back. It was a little bit of a journey, one that I had to be patient with. I had to set my pride down in some situations, and I couldn't lift things. I couldn't shower on my own, so I had to rely on other people in that. And
Humility.
yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. I don't think we're given challenges that we can't overcome, and I wouldn't like to say that we all need challenges in our life, but I think if we're willing to look for a lesson in it, they're very beneficial.
When you said when I passed you, I want to clarify something. I stopped because passing you would have not have been good. I was, well, you were ahead of me because quickly you've already gotten better than the old man, which is humbling and it's also good at the same time. But anyway, I was probably, I don't know, 50 yards behind you, maybe 40 yards or whatever, and saw that. And I remember I stopped to see if you were okay. And I remember looking at you, and I think you were still in shock at what happened, because I'm like, are you okay? And you said yes. And in my mind, I took off, and I'm like, I wonder if okay means he's going to keep going in this, because I had a friend of mine that had the same thing happen to him at Ironman Chattanooga, and he finished it. Now, I'm not saying, what's wrong with you, Shane? You should have done that. I don't know how bad his break was or whatever. It's irrelevant. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, he did it. Shane said he's okay. So cool, he's going to keep going. And I remember coming back, and I didn't see you. And I was pretty certain that you didn't continue. And I immediately thought, that's self-care. Because, the other guy I'm talking about that did that, he just broke it again because he didn't take the proper time to heal. And again, this goes back to the self-care that you were talking about earlier. You have been spot on with making sure you do whatever you need to do, regardless of who else is doing what or saying what or whatever. You've done exactly what you need to get through that. I do want you to talk about, you had planned and big hopes to do the full Ironman in Chattanooga. And there was a bit of a struggle of, I don't know if I can do this or whatever. How did you deal with that effectively?
Listening to people that knew better than I did.
Yeah, they're called doctors.
Yeah, right. We pay them for a reason, and they get the money they deserve.
Right.
So, I went down in that race and popped back up because I wanted to finish, obviously, and quickly realizing that this hurts and it's probably not going to get any better unless I seek some medical attention.
Yeah.
So I think in just keeping that theme throughout the recovery process and listening to people that get paid for what they do. However, that can be difficult because there's thoughts that you want to make the process faster or convenient to fit your goals, which life sometimes has different plans for you. And I think, for a bit there, I was struggling with, can I do it? Can I not? And for me, in doing my first Ironman, and since then a couple other events that were challenging, there's a point where I have to picture myself crossing the finish line to be able to do that event and having that self-confidence to do it. If I'm training for it, eventually I can picture myself going through the whole race and crossing the finish line. I was starting to get there before Muncie, and in my training, I've seen that glimpse. I was close. But in going back after the injury, I just couldn't see that for myself.
You see it now, though, for next year.
Yeah. I see myself getting to that point. Not yet. I see myself being able to put in the work to do that. I couldn't even put in the work when I was injured.
So you get back on the horse and we go down to Wilmington and you finish that one and even the score, so to speak. What was your return to racing? What was Wilmington Ironman like for you besides cold?
Well, I was thinking about that moment this morning, actually, and I think the swim was daunting for some because of the cold. I think for me, it was a great distraction for the anxiety and fear I had for getting back on the bike. I hadn't rode on the road at all since, well, I did for a little training run but that week, but I hadn't put any time back in on the road before that race. So yeah, the swim was a good distraction. And so got through that, got back on the bike, and it was a different feeling than it had been ever before. Just constantly looking behind me, looking in front of me, making sure nobody was by me. I practiced some patience, which in Muncie I was not, I don't think. I think I got a little overconfident, a little overzealous, and just wasn't aware of my surroundings, you know. Definitely was aware of my surroundings in Wilmington, and I had an emotional moment on the bike, you know, and recognizing that I did overcome something and coming back from that injury. It was good.
Again, I want to ask you, how does empathy, humility, and gratitude, which are on all of our Racing for Recovery apparel, if you will, how have those three things been applicable to, I don't want you to do it in Ironman in general, but specifically with overcoming the crash in Muncie and then getting back on it in Wilmington? How do those three words fit into that race and now carrying you forward?
So empathy for myself and recognizing that I am overcoming injury, being kind to myself, showing myself grace. Humility, knowing that it could potentially be a slow race for me. Yeah, I think I was lacking humility. I think I was lacking humility in Muncie, to be completely honest with myself, you know. And then gratitude for just being able to do it and come back, you know.
Man, we've been talking a while. That's okay, because it's good. What's the future like for you, Ironman wise, career wise at Racing for Recovery, personally? What's ahead that you're already metaphorically envisioning the finish?
Family wise, it's kind of where my focus has been.
Good.
Recently. Envisioning owning my own house one day, with some property. Continuing to raise a beautiful little girl.
Yeah.
Joey, with Jessica. Has been a fun challenge, and continuing to be a positive role model in her life, and showing her what it means to be human, you know. Professionally, I'm kind of, I don't know, I think I'm still finding my groove and what I want to do. I enjoy what I do. Seeing where I want to take it to the next level is still what I'm going through in my head, you know. I sometimes have an issue with commitment, so committing to something and sticking with it will be a decision that I look forward to. But
Well, that's again, if you've done it in Ironman, you can do that in any aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Right? That's again what people don't understand, that the Ironman, what it really is and what it really isn't. And yeah, the dedication to do that crazy thing 6 times, that same thing can be put into whatever you want to do here or elsewhere or your family or whatever. Yeah. Anything you need to say that you haven't said yet before we close?
I just think everybody deserves a fair chance to do their best in life, and you're worth it, and do it, you know.
That's the Racing for Recovery motto. And I just want to say in closing that it's been awesome watching you, like some other people here, just come in here and do what we do in your way and letting it shine. And it's shining, dude. And keep it going, man. Good on you.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. That might have been a record for the longest podcast we've done, over an hour. Check out other Racing for Recovery podcasts on our YouTube page. And thanks for tuning in today. Have an awesome day.